In this video, we will be discussing bone surface markings. Bone surface markings are created in response to tension on a bone surface from tendons, ligaments, or new bone deposited. This results in raised or roughened surface areas. Conversely, compression on a bone surface results in a depression. Most surface markings aren't present at birth, and they are most prominent in the adult skeleton. And there are two types of surface markings that we will discuss today: depressions and openings, and processes. So here we have a table that lists out all the different types of depressions and processes, and we will briefly talk about each of these individually, but here's kind of a full table that has all of them listed at once. A fissure is a narrow slit between adjacent parts of the bone, and this is through which blood vessels or nerves can pass through. An example of this would be the superior orbital fissure. As you can see here, this area where nerves and blood vessels can pass to get into the orbital, or where the eyeball sits. A foramen is a larger opening in bone through which blood vessels and nerves travel as well. The optic foramen or the large foramen magnum, these are really good examples of foramens. A fossa, meaning trench. This is a shallow depression. As you can see here, the mandibular fossa is going to be this nice shallow depression right there. A sulcus is a furrow along a bone surface that accommodates for a blood vessel or nerve or a tendon. And a meatus is a tube-like opening. Meatus specifically means passageway. And a good example of the meatus is the external auditory meatus, which is the passageway into your ear canal. Okay, moving on to processes. Now there are three processes or protuberances that form joints, and they are condyles, faucets, and heads. So a condyle is a large round protuberance with a small articular surface at the end of the bone. So this here is seen at the lateral end of the femur and also here on the mandible for the condylar process. And remember, these form joints. A faucet is going to be a smooth, flat, slightly concave surface. So that's an important part, slightly concave surface that you can see really well here in the vertebrae at this faucet of superior articular process. So these are usually articulation points, or points where other bones will come into contact with them, and these are articulation points for other bones. A head is usually a rounded articular projection on a neck, so that a neck is going to be a constricted portion of the bone. And here you can see a head on the rib, like right here. You can also see a head as an articular process on the head of the femur. There are other processes that form attachment points for connective tissue, and there are 7 different types that we will talk about. First, we have a crest, which is a prominent ridge or elongated process, like we see here on the sacrum as the medium sacral crest. In epicondyle, this is typically a roughened portion above a condyle. And then a line is a long, narrow ridge or border. It's less prominent than a crest. So here you can see these superior and inferior lines. A spinous process is a sharp and slender projection. And process, remember, just means like a sticky out bit or a protuberance. And so here we have a spinous process, which is a long, slender projection on a vertebrae. Trochanters. These are very large projections. And a tuber hole. Tuber means knob, and this is kind of a variable, it's a variably sized round projection. So here we have an articular tuber hole. As you can see there, it's just kind of a small rounded projection. A tuberosity. This is a variably sized projection with a large, rough, bumpy surface. So you can see here in this sacral tuberosity, and usually it's an articulation point for a lot of muscles. So remember, all of these different bone surface markings were on that initial table where they are all outlined and defined as well. And that will be the end of Chapter 7, Part 2.